Today we have a visitor from Japan. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. We've got another Fender Japan signature guitar for the man Takashi Kato. So he's part of the Tokyo Ska Paradise Orchestra. They seem like a pretty cool group of guys. They have some really light, fun, happy, and groovy music. They've played in over 31 countries, even at the Coachella show. And if you watch Fender Japan's video, he has a really cool Western and kind of surf rock vibes to him as a player. It's very interesting. And he's well known for using a 1965 Stratocaster that he's nicknamed Driftwood. So that's what they tried to recreate here in a Fender Japan product. So I kind of view this as like an extension of the American Vintage 2 series that just came out. This thing has some cool vintage specs on it, but is not yet custom shop level. And to show you what I mean, let's go ahead and get this thing out, but whoa, what is this? I'm not sure if the dealer added this, but they're no longer using those little plastic baggies. This is like a really nice pillowcase cloth. That's nice. Oh, and in case you didn't notice, this has a deluxe gig bag. It's got some padding. Let's get this thing out. So first off, you're gonna notice you have a very cool vintage style Fender logo. And I'm feeling the back of the neck on this is a nice satin finish. However, as far as our body goes, oh, nice. That's a beautiful blue color. I know we don't talk about Stratocasters a lot on this channel, but this is seriously striking. But what makes this so vintage inspired and spec'd and makes it a little bit more expensive, these things are 217,800 yen new, is the fact that these have a thin nitro finish. So that's what the vintage Stratocasters had. However, this kind of feels orange peely, but it's supposed to be a thinner than normal finish. So maybe that's just part of that process, or Fender Japan doesn't do this style finish too often, so they're not that good. Whatever it is though, this finish looks awesome. So it's the Paradise Orchestra, right? So they called this Paradise Blue. That works pretty nicely. So we'll see on the workbench, we've actually got some custom pickups in here and they've aged them. That's cool. It's the small things on these guys that make them look awesome. From the old style Fender logo, that's all aged, to the aged pickup covers as compared to our parchment pickguard. I was a little bit worried when I bought this one. I thought it looked nice, but is the American audience gonna love it as much as I did? And now that I have it in person, this is seriously impressive. I really like the fact that this is that satin finish on the back. So I kind of view this model as another one of the American Vintage 2 series guitars, except for it's for 1965 rather than the 61 Stratocaster we got, and it was made in Japan, so not the same at all, but both models are trying to do the same thing. Provide vintage style specs at a non-custom shop price point. Now as far as case candy goes, let's see what we can find. Looks like all our usual stuff. The new black warranty pick here. This is just a pamphlet, by the way. You fill it out, you send it in. Now, being a USA buyer, I don't get a warranty unless you want to mail it back to Japan for service. Which have a little Allen key for adjustments of the bridge, Fender manual. Then most importantly is a trem bar arm that has a matched age tip to the rest of the plastics here. So to learn more about this Paradise Blue Stratocaster, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take a look at its parts and specs. Inside the Kato Stratocaster, let's take a look at these things. So here again, you can see the difference in the coloration of the plastics. But when I lifted this pickguard off, I was quite impressed. They definitely matched their goal of trying to make a vintage style guitar, but on a budget price point. Like at first, when they called these vintage style single coils that are specially wound, I was like, okay, that's just your cheap generic Fender Japan pickup that they specially wind a little bit differently. But no, this actually looks like a custom shop style pickup. Now it's not, but at least has the cloth wiring everywhere. Looks like we've got 250 K-pots on here with a large ceramic disc capacitor and some shielding going on. And here's a look at our toggle switch. If you wanted to modify one of these, you are stuck with single coils. You can't do like an HSS setup unless you modify the body. But here's what you're working with there. And it looks like you don't have to take the neck off if you have the right tool to adjust the truss rod. But as far as the controls go, it's a volume for all of them, a tone just for your neck, and a tone just for the middle. Your bridge pickup does not have a tone control. According to the spec sheet anyways. And that is historically correct. But how specially wound is specially wound. The neck is 5.84 K ohms. The middle position is 5.84 as well. Bridge pickup, 6.53, so a little bit hotter. And then just for fun, our in-betweens, 3.12 for bridge and middle, and 2.94 for the neck and middle. And here's what we got going on for our output jack. Seems pretty standard issue stuff.
But now this finish, I really want to focus on it because it's pretty much the main selling point of this. They said it's a super thin nitro finish, and what that's translating to me anyways is maybe they skipped the final gloss coat, where this is just like the paint coat and that's why it kind of feels orange peely. They didn't just do like that final buffing process. That's what it feels like to me. It's interesting. Am I going to say it's my favorite finish in the world? No. It's kind of got a slightly textured feel to it, but at the same time it's still smooth. So I wouldn't let it scare you away if you're considering one of these, because having an all nitro finish on a Fender Japan guitar is pretty special. But here's a look at our vintage saddles. You've got 6 of them Fender branded. They're crafting these ones out of alder bodies. Now how many pieces? We can't tell, but they are alder. So now let's talk the neck. This feels like a really nice vintage style neck. We've got 21 narrow tall frets. It captures that really rounded 7 1/4 inch radius, which he wanted more people to try, because that's what he liked about his original. No funny business on the scale length, 25.5 inches. As far as the rest of the neck specs, we got 1.63 inches at the nut, which is made of bone, by the way. A rather skinny 2.01 by the 12th. But it's a pretty rounded neck, 0.84 by the 1st fret, beefs up to almost 1 inch by the 12th. That is good. Here it is at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. The whole thing just feels so round. The fretboard is round. The back of the neck is ultra round. It's like you're playing a cylinder over here. In a good way, in a good way. They call it a 65 C-shape neck. It's just nice and rounded, but what I really love is these little pearloid dot markers. They almost look like real mother of pearl to me, and they're all aged over in that lacquered finish, so it even looks like a vintage guitar. But I really like the dot inlays too. They're a little bit larger than normal, it almost looks like. And even though it's just a pearloid material, it looks like real mother of pearl. It's just like extra white. I think that's how they pull off the effect. Or maybe it's because this is a 3-ply parchment pickguard, so it's slightly off-white in its own right, and then you get these almost yellow mint green plastics going on here, and that's just the contrast that makes these look so blisteringly clear. Now, as far as the headstock, very vintage inspired. Tuners are the poke it down, wrap it around style. And I just love this really bold, old looking Fender logo on it. You've got a single string tree. In typical Fender fashion though, the headstock is a full-on gloss finish, and it also appears to be a nitro finish. So if you were worried about the whole texturedness of this on the headstock too, it doesn't appear they're doing that. They put that final glossy coat on it. Moving on to the backside, here's what we're working with. Regular Stratocaster comfort carve. Here's what our trem system looks like underneath our cover. The trem block is magnetic, so that tells me they have a slightly higher quality tremolo system in here, because normally the Fender Japan ones are not. Here we can see a little bit of that alder body. But if nothing else, at least this finish, whether you like it or not, covers the seam lines pretty good. I'm looking here and I'm not seeing any seam lines, so at least they got that part right. But it truly is an interesting finish. I think I'm starting to lean more towards I don't like it just because it looks like it's all orange peeled. But since it's such a beautiful hue, I'm not going to worry about it. But who knows? Maybe there's something to this. I'll plug it in and go, oh yeah, I'm a believer. I mean, there's a reason he spec'd it out like this. This artist could have had whatever he wanted, and this is what he chose. So sometimes don't judge too fast is all I'm saying. But we have a 4-screw neck, which is correct. And it looks like we got maybe just a little bit of flamed figuring near the heel. I did notice there was a little bit of bird's eye right there in between the tuners. But this is a very, very nicely finished satin neck. I know I've said it 3 times, but I love how Fender does that. Glossy tops, glossy bodies looking good, but then where it really matters, the neck, they take the time. So there's no like orange peeliness to this. Don't worry about that. All said and done, this one is 7 pounds, 13.2 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and see if it sounds as magical as it looks. Okay, very vintage sounding, spanky and bright, if that's what you're going for here. 2 That was your neck pickup. Here's your middle position. Bridge. Now your in-betweens. Alright, so that neck pickup can get really aggressive. Now that we know all about this new Fender Japan Signature Artist Stratocaster, what are my final thoughts on this thing? Now before I say anything, I just want to say this is a very strange signature guitar. It definitely has its own thing going on, but did you notice throughout this entire episode, there's no name on this anywhere, not on the neck plate, not on the back of the headstock, or even a special serial number. A lot of Fender Japan Signature guitars get a little caricature on the back, like the Silent Siren series. This has nothing. So I don't care if you know about this band or this man's work or not. If you love the way this looks, there's no reason to go, no, I don't want that because it's a signature guitar. There's some guys out there that are like that. They want to make it their own. And I think that's exactly what he's accomplished here. The finish is definitely unlike anything I've seen. It's kind of like a really dark Lake Placid blue, essentially. There is a little bit of sparkle in here if you get it in the sunlight just right. And there is a bit of a, okay, this is what it feels like effect. But it's just kind of like somewhere in between a satin and a full gloss. It's kind of interesting, but I dig the way this thing looks. Now, as far as the tones go, if you're looking for very vintage-inspired tones, I think you're going to be happy with this. I thought this got really aggressive with some dirty tones. But as far as the clean tones, I mean, I didn't really love any of this except for the neck pickup. But, you know, that changes day to day, whatever my mood is. But one last thing I want to mention, we saw some flame in the heel, but this example does have a very minor amount of figuring. I'm not going to advertise this as a flamed neck, but it does have a little bit of that going on here. But it was a very comfortable guitar, so if these specs are agreeable to you and you love the way it looks, for about the same price as a Fender American 2, you can have a 65 vintage style Stratocaster. Alright, Troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed this Stratocaster review, how about you check out my personal Stratocaster I will not be selling. It's a blast! Well, a sandblast anyways.